What scientific milestones are biotech companies expecting by the end of this year? And how could that impact their stock prices? Stick around because we are about to dive in. Let's fire up the taxi! Welcome to TaxiBiotech, a show to keep up with the latest news and updates from the world of biotechnology and to learn about its impact on the stock market. The stock data I present here is just a reflection of how companies or the clinical trials are progressing and does not constitute any investment recommendation. This is purely for entertainment. In my previous videos, I shared the strategy I'm using to get ahead of those explosive moves we all love in biotech. The idea is quite simple. Analyze financial reports, pick companies with enough cash to last at least a year, and that also have upcoming scientific catalysis. Then dig into the science to try to anticipate whether those trials could succeed or not. And of course, this is biotech. Nothing is guaranteed. It's not unusual to see a stock drop 50% when everyone thought the trial was going well. On Twitter, I already shared a big list of companies with enough cash runway and major catalysis lined up for the late 2025 or early 2026. Today, I'll cover just a few of them here, but you can always use my Twitter thread to dig into the others on your own. And now let's move on to new companies for this 2025. First up, Mereo BioPharma. Mereo? Well, I don't know. Ticker MREO. So they are working on cetuximab, an antibody for osteogenesis imperfecta. This antibody finally blocks osteoclast activity to prevent bone fractures. Of course, this is the simple idea, okay? They expect to have a phase 3 data by the end of this year, as stated in their last press release. Back on July 9th, they presented interim phase 3 result. Let's look closer, because the details matter in this case. They said safety was acceptable and that they were confident in the outcome. And as I said before, when a press release uses words like acceptable, confident, trend, or in a subpopulation, it's usually a red flag. But here is the detail. Their trial design, here in green, their trial design only allowed them to analyze interim data if they hit a very strong statistical threshold, less than 0.01. Since they didn't, they weren't allowed to share full interim results. And naturally, it's logical, the market saw that as a negative and the stock tanked 44%. However, if we look back at their phase 2 data here from June 11th, 2024, results were positive and statistically significant. And we have a very powerful statistic here. The stock then jumped more than 30% at that time. And I want to share you a post on X from DCA, breaking it down, sharing an analysis from a company, analyzing this playing here. So they say that failing to meet the early stop criteria doesn't necessarily mean the trial will fail at the finish line. In fact, these analysts expect this drug could generate 1.5 billion annually in the US alone. Keep in mind, Mereo current market cap is only around $280 million. And they say literally here, we recommend buying on any weakness should Orbit proceed to final analysis. And this is what already happened. Personally, and this is just my opinion, I think it's a solid opportunity. Yes, phase 2 only had 24 patients, and a larger sample could change the outcome, of course. But based on prior data, I see a good risk-reward setup here. but this is just my opinion, not financial advice. Next up, for the molecular therapeutics, they expected interim results for their cystic fibrosis trial later this year, they said in their press releases. On September 23rd, they attended a conference and presented a poster with this title here. They reference it on their website here with this web link, but I went there and I couldn't find it anywhere. If any of you have read it, please drop in the comments, please. They also had another poster back on June 8th where they showed some data of their drug. The results? Well, they said it was tolerated and they showed a notable increase in CFTR protein expression in patients with cystic fibrosis. But here is the catch. The improvements in lung function were minimal. That's why I would really like to see the more recent poster to better understand how those lungs are actually doing. And what does the chart tell us? Look, every time they presented at these conferences, the stock dropped 20 and 30% respectively. You already know I trust the charts a lot when interpreting results, and this doesn't look good. I truly wish them for the best, and I hope they can bring good news to CF patients who can benefit from modulators that Vertex have in the market. So I wish them the best. Finally, let's talk about MBX. They are developing a novel therapy for hypoparathyroidism. Something completely new on the market. It's a once-a-week subcutaneous injection that helps restore hormone levels using an analog. This could improve calcium absorption, which is critical for these patients. They plan to present their phase 2 data in Q3 2025. Last year, they published phase 1 results with healthy patients. And they show that their injection in this graph reduced endogenous hormone levels. The argument is that the drop happens because the analog is already doing the job, and that makes sense. They also showed that calcium levels increase in a very good dose-response performance. But remember, phase 1 was done in healthy volunteers, so we couldn't see the full potentials of the therapy. Now, in the phase 2, they are finally testing in hypoparathyroidism patients. When they release the phase 1 data, the stock pop over 30%. A strong sign in my view. If the phase 2 results show clear benefits in patients, this could be another big winner by the end of the year. So that's it for today's video. This taxi is dropping you off at a very special place for humanity. Cape Cañaveral, yes, in Spanish, a site of historic milestone, just like the ones these companies are trying to deliver. Will their rockets reach the stratosphere or crash back to the Earth? We'll find out by the end of this year. See you in the next episode. Bye.